going on, everybody out there? This is Popular Stranger, and we are back at you again today with another Madden 23 Ultimate Team video. In today's video, we're going to teach you everything you need to know about X Factors, abilities, and how ability points work in MUT 23. Now, if you guys enjoy this video, if you like it, if it helps you out, make sure you go ahead and click that thumbs up button. Shows a lot of support on the channel, helps the videos get noticed. Also, if you're brand new here because you were searching on YouTube for MUT 23 content, or maybe the video was recommended to you, stay a while. Click that subscribe button, turn that notification bell on as well so you guys are alerted when we drop additional videos. Let's get right on into it. So we're going to go over everything. Now, abilities, X Factors, they haven't changed too much from Madden 22, but we have a big lack of power-ups this year, and we're seeing more and more cards come with pre-baked or pre-equipped abilities. So we're going to show you how to spot those cards. We're going to show you how to activate X Factors and abilities, and let's talk about the difference between the two. So if you guys are new here, and I know a lot of you have been playing this game for several years now, abilities and X Factors were introduced in Madden 20, and way back then, you could only have 3 abilities on offense and 3 abilities on defense. Well, in Madden 21, they introduced ability points, and I know this is going to be repetitive for those of you that are veterans to the game. This is more so catered to the new people, the people who are maybe playing their first Madden Ultimate Team, are coming back after a few years and need a little bit of help with it. But they now have ability points, which allow a lot more customization. Back in Madden 20, pretty much everybody ran the same 3 abilities on offense and defense, and you're going to see a lot of repetitiveness amongst the community because certain abilities just work better than others, but you can still kind of cater to your playstyle with ability points, so we'll show you that. Let's talk about the difference between X Factors and abilities. I think this Jalen Hurts Headliners card is a really good example that we can use because it comes pre-equipped with both an X Factor and an ability. We're going to talk about cards that don't have anything on them at all. We're going to talk about cards that have pre-equipped abilities. We're going to talk about cards that have discounted abilities. But this one, and a lot of the Headliners cards in general, had pre-equipped not only abilities but X Factors. So X Factors, the best way I can explain them is that they are superpowers, right? But they can only be utilized if a certain criteria is met in game. So we have Jalen Hurts here. He has dots pre-equipped, and it says basically if you make consecutive passes for a consecutive passes that are 5 yards or longer, you'll eventually equip this, and it's going to grant perfect passing accuracy on any throw. And every position, every type of player has a different set of X Factors, and you can scroll through all of them and see what they are and how to equip them. Usually it'll tell you once you activate it. So if we wanted to put a bazooka on here, by the way, for most abilities, don't cost any ability points, whereas abilities obviously do. So if we unlock the bazooka, and we're going to go ahead and just say replace ability, it does cost you 25 coins to do that. You can now see bazooka is on this card. It's not activated. We're going to show you how to do that in a moment, but it is on this card. Max throwing distance is increased by 15 yards, and in order to activate it, you need to complete 30+ yard air passes. I think you have to do it multiple times. I wish it told you the number of times you had to do it on this description, but unfortunately it does not. So those are X Factors. Those, when you pull up an upgrade screen on any card, whether it's a Core Elite, a promo card, any card, it's going to be this, the bigger square, and then the abilities are going to follow after. And you're going to hear people in the community talk about buckets. So this is a tier 1 bucket. As we move to the right, tier 2 bucket, tier 3. I believe we're going to see all the way up to 5 towards the end of the year, but there's no cards with more than 3 right now. And a really cool and new addition to the game this year is the very first bucket, the ability 1 bucket. You might notice that there is a 0 training cost on all of these. Now, typically these abilities aren't very good, and that's probably why they're going to be free, but it also gives you an opportunity to try some out. So don't get that confused with ability points. They still do cost ability points, and your limit on offense and defense right now is going to be 12, but none of these abilities, if I wanted to equip them, cost me any training to unlock them. They're all unlocked by default. Now, if I move on to tier number 2, you're going to see like Anchored Extender costs 150 training. You'll see that amount directly under the title of it. If we look at Gift Wrap, it's 150 training. If we look at Tight Out, it's 150 training. Once we purchase this ability, we're going to take away 150 training from our account, right? But it's still not activated. It's on this card, and he did also have a pre-equipped ability, which was Quick Draw, faster throwing animations when under pressure. And by the way, over the next 2 days after today, we are going to drop videos on the best abilities to use on offense and the best abilities to use on defense. I figured this is a good kind of building block, a starting point to go over all of this before we get into the best abilities to use, so stay tuned for those videos. Now, this card actually came pre-equipped with that quick draw. Another really cool thing about pre-baked abilities this year is that you can remove them. So I could go right into this and I could take this off and go refund ability, and boom, it's not going to give me anything back because we didn't spend anything to get it, but now we can customize this third slot if we did not want to use quick draw. There's going to be several other abilities that come out as cards get better in the year. You can see a lot of those right now, you just can't unlock them, but the cool thing is for each archetype, so quarterbacks have different archetypes, wide receivers, defensive players, for each archetype it will tell you the specific requirements that you need to know to unlock. So if I wanted to get Gunslinger on Jalen Hurts, he's going to need a 97 overall card and 95 throw power. So he is a long ways away from that happening, but it could eventually happen and likely will. And as you can see, Gunslinger is going to be a very good ability. Look at the cost and training on that one. It's 10,000. If we go to, quick draw, it's 350 training. So you can see a big difference there. And as we kind of scroll down, the better abilities are all about 10K in training. Some of them are a little bit cheaper. And another thing you're always going to want to look for is the ability cost. So as I cycle through these, right, it gives you the name, it gives you the cost in training, it gives you the requirements, and then at the bottom right, or kind of the bottom middle, it shows you the ability point cost. And again, you have 12 AP to work with on offense, same as defense. So if I wanted to activate No Look Deadeye, I need Jalen Hurts to have a 95 overall card. He'd have to have 95 throw on the run. And then once I'm able to purchase this ability, it's going to cost 3 AP to activate it. So early on, when ability points were first introduced back in Madden 21, this was a big, mistake that a lot of people were making. And I just want to throw it out there. I think if you've been playing the game over the last couple of years, you're aware of this. But if you look, and the font's really small, but if you see, like, we have two of our offensive linemen, they have abilities there, right? And Lane Johnson has one, Randy Moss has one, DeMarco Murray, Michael Crabtree, Justin Jefferson. They all have abilities. You can see it on the card art. That doesn't mean that those abilities are going to work in game. You actually have to activate them. So just simply putting an ability on a card doesn't mean that that card's going to have the ability in game. If that were the case, then you could put an ability on every player and this game would be madness. It would be an arcade game. Some might say it is now, but you get my point, right? So in order to activate either an X Factor or an ability, we're going to go over to our active superstar screen, and we have 12 AP to work with. So let's go right into it, and we're going to show you the difference between X Factors and abilities within here. The first thing is, it is entirely possible to activate an X Factor on a card and not the ability, and I think you can do it the other way around. If you want to activate an X Factor only, you have to make sure that the ability slots are all removed, and that's what we've done with Jalen Hurts. So if I wanted to activate dots on him, I would go to his card within this screen, just hit X on PlayStation, A on Xbox, and that little check mark next to the icon above the word dots shows that this is one of my X Factors that's activated. Also notice, and like I said earlier, X Factors do not take AP or ability points, so we're still at our 0 out of 12 limit. But if you look right under my coin count, it now says X Factor limit 1 of 3. You can have 3 X Factors activated at a time as well. And maybe I shouldn't use the word activated, because that doesn't mean they're activated in game. Remember, you still have to meet that specific criteria. Now, when we take a card like Justin Jefferson, who has both an X Factor and ability, let's go ahead and hit X on PlayStation or A on Xbox, and now you're going to see our X Factor limit is 2 of 3 because we have Rack 'em Up on here, but also he has Short and Elite, which is a really good ability, and this is now equipped, and that's taking 2 out of our 12 total ability points. And again, look right below our overall and our coin count, X Factor limit 2 of 3, ability point limit 2 of 12. Now, if I didn't want to activate this specific X Factor on this specific card, you can actually hit Y on Xbox or triangle on PlayStation to deactivate it, and watch what happens. The ability is still going to be activated. It's just the X Factor. So we're still using our 2 AP on Justin Jefferson, on Short and Elite, but now our X Factor limit went back to 1 of 3. So potentially you could activate a whole group of cards that totals the 12 AP limit, and then 3 additional cards that don't have any abilities on them and only X Factors. It's not really the greatest thing to do, but it is a possibility. That's where a lot of the customization comes in. Now, I mentioned it earlier in the video that a lot of cards, and this is just kind of a big change with the lack of power-ups this year, a lot of cards come pre-equipped with abilities already on them. Now, to find what cards have what abilities already baked on, your number one source has to be mutt.gg. You go to mutt.gg/abilities, and this is the page that you're going to get. And not only does this give you all of the abilities and the players that can get those abilities, but it also gives them a nice little ranking on ones that are good and ones that are not so good. And they consult with pros on this. This is what I'll be using when we go over the best offensive and defensive abilities. But it's a really good website in the sense that, all right, if I just scroll down here and I click outside apprentice, that's a receiver ability, right? It's going to show me all of the players in this game that can get outside apprentice. So you can scroll through and see all of them. It tells you the cost on these cards. That's awesome, but it also shows you the players that get it at a discounted ability cost. And if you look to the left of the list of the players who have that ability, you're going to also see the cost. So for example, if we look at a physical wide receiver, to get it, it's 2 ability points normally. But if you take a look at this Larry Fitzgerald, who has a physical archetype, he gets it at that discounted cost for 1 AP. So this can come in, very handy when you're trying to build a team, but also limit yourself to that 12 AP. And if there's any ability you're looking for, you're going to find it. There are some abilities that nobody has just yet, like Gunslinger, Route Technician, but definitely use this website as a guide to figure out maybe players you want to target if you're looking for discounted abilities and whatnot. We'll just click another one like Identifier, right? It gives us the requirements on the left, what archetype and how much ability points that costs, and then the discounted players. So Jari Evans, that legend LTD that came out over the weekend, he gets it for 1 AP. It's discounted. Everybody else, Drew Bledsoe, all of these players, you'd have to look at their archetype. So Drew Bledsoe is a strong arm. You can see it right there. If we scroll down our list, we see that strong arm QBs require 3 ability points for that ability. So that's a way to look around for pre-equipped cards that have pre-equipped abilities. And honestly, so far we've had a handful of promos. We've had headliners, we've had campus heroes. Right now we're in Ultimate Kickoff. Pretty much all of the higher overall elites are coming pre-equipped with these cards. The lower overall ones and the core elites are not. You can still add abilities to pretty much any elite card in the game. Gold's different story. I don't have too many core elites on my team anymore, but we got Wyatt Teller here. So when we're in our lineup screen, right, you can hit square on PlayStation. It would be, I believe, X on Xbox. It's going to pull up this screen where you can go to upgrade, and you can get to this from your binder as well. I just like doing it from here because you can basically see, you can go right back to your lineup from here. So you're going to get to a situation where this upgrade slot is unlocked. Or I'm sorry, it is locked, and you have to unlock it with 5 ability points. And this is another teaching moment, right? So if I do this upgrade, accept 5 training, no big deal. If you look at the bottom left of the card, and we'll have to move our face cam here, bottom right of the card, I'm sorry, it now says BND. I can't sell this card because I unlocked these ability and X Factor slots. And I get this question all the time. Why is this card BND? Why can't I sell it? In order to fix that issue, you'd basically have to do the reverse of that and go to refund instead of upgrade. It's going to give you back 2 of the 5 training you spent, and now it will allow you to sell that card. So that's just kind of a quick tip there if you're running into that problem. So let's go ahead and add an an ability to this core elite card that doesn't come pre-equipped with an ability. And remember, most tier 1 abilities are going to be free. They do cost AP, but they don't cost training to put on the card. Let's go ahead and activate Identifier on this card, on this Wyatt Teller. So if we go in, we go craft ability, it's costing us 200 training to do this. We're going to go ahead and equip ability. Just remember, equipping the ability doesn't mean it's activated within the game. When you load into a game, Identifier will not work on this Wyatt Teller. You need to go back over to your active superstar screen, and this is where you're going to kind of toggle on and off. Now, right now, we're at 9 out of our 12 AP limit, so we can go down to Wyatt Teller, right, and we can put Identifier on him, and that's going to get us to our 12 AP limit. We were at 9. That Identifier on that card costs 3 AP. 9 plus 3 equals 12. I knew that because I'm good at math, but check this out, right? I just want to make sure you guys, it's very common, but are very simple, but if we activated Donald Parham, now we're at 12 of 12, and I try to activate Teller after that, it gives us an error basically saying you're over your AP limit. and as I mentioned earlier, they will probably increase that limit at some point. Who knows when, but basically it's saying you got to deactivate somebody, and you can just see that number keeps switching. It keeps up with what you're doing. And that is pretty much how you activate X factors and abilities, equip them on cards. The big difference this year is there are a lot of cards that are pre-equipped with it. We also have a big change in power-ups, and I'll try to use this as a very quick example. It's only in the Legends program, and we actually have the power-up for Michael Vick. Now, I don't have him fully powered up, but if we equip his power-up, the big change here with power-ups this year, number one, there's a big lack of them, but number two, you can get discounted abilities as you power up a card. So you can see right here with Michael Vick, I've powered him up to tier 2. We take his power up, we add 5 training to basically get it to the second step. To get it to the second step, we have to add his 82 overall, and that's going to upgrade his ratings, but it's also going to unlock unique ability buckets that are at discounted AP. Now, for example, if we powered Michael Vick all the way up, he would get all the way up to an 88 overall, he would get Jukebox discounted at a 1 AP ability limit. If we power him all the way up, he'll get Set Feet Lead for 2 AP. So the description shows you the discounts that you get, and of course you can still use mutt.gg as I showed you. You can see her on the screen. I went to Set Feet Lead. It still shows Michael Vick is one of those players that can get it at a discount. If you power him up, it's 2 AP, and you might notice under that, it's 4 AP. It's his regular cost. If you don't power him up, he can still get Set Feet Lead. Now, the same way that we did all of this on offense, it's going to work exactly the same on defense. We may see them have different ability limits at one point. It happened last year in MUT 22. Just one other tip or trick to go over before we get out of here. When you go over to your specialist screen, okay, and say like, I want to keep Crabtree in my lineup, but I don't want him as my slot receiver anymore. I want Randy Moss as my slot receiver. If we go back over to our offense, you're going to see that Crabtree is still in his same position. He's still wide receiver number 3. Moss is still wide receiver number 2, but it deactivates their abilities when you do that, when you mess around with the specialist screen. So I'd have to go back in and basically reactivate Randy Moss for that to work. You always just want to double check that anytime you're doing any type of changing on your lineup on the specialist screen before you load into a game. Just double check, make sure your abilities look exactly the way you want. And then also special teams, we didn't really go over it because you don't use it too much right now, but special teams has a 2 AP limit. This is typically used on your kicker for like focus kicker or the ability that stops you from being iced at the end of the game. But I think we covered everything. It works the same on offense as it does on defense. We taught you the difference between X factors and abilities. We talked a lot about pre-equipped cards that have abilities baked in and how to find those cards with discounted pre-baked abilities, and we showed you how to add an ability on a card that doesn't have it, like that Wyatt Teller or pretty much any other elite in the game. So if you got any other questions about this, leave it down below in the comment section. I'll do my best to respond to them. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Popular Stranger. I'm out. Peace.